Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. I know someone who recently went on a trip to take their elderly uncle, very elderly, to go visit their other uncle who lived across the country. And they hadn't seen each other in years because they were so elderly and infirm. But they wanted to make it possible. It was really a mitzvah trip, a beautiful mitzvah trip. And I was thinking what they were doing was taking a situation that was so challenging, two brothers living across the country, and they just can't see each other because of circumstances, and with the power of kindness, remedying it and making it whole, making it beautiful. So Shavuot is also about the harvest and also about the bikurim, right? The first fruits that were brought at the time of the temple, first fruits of the harvest. And also the first fruits of that journey from freedom to slavery, harvesting that sense of freedom. So tomorrow we read in our services the book of Ruth. And the book of Ruth is perhaps one of the most comforting and beautiful books of all of our Tanakh, of all of our scriptures, because it begins with so many situations in our world with a setup where everything is broken. All the tragedy is happening. And not the tragedies and brokenness are in other books of great events, of sovereigns, not of our matriarchs and patriarchs, of Abraham and Sarah, but of everyday people. And so set in a time long ago of a family of Israelites who go live in Moab, and their tragedy strikes, and the husband dies, and then the two adult sons die, and Naomi is left all by herself. And so when the famine strikes, she decides she's going to go back to Israel, to where her home village was. And her daughters-in-law, who are Moabite, are sad. And they say, we want to follow you and come with her. But she says, stay in your home. I cannot find you another husband. And so as we know, one of them accepts, but one, Ruth, refused. And she says, wherever you will go, I will go. Your home will be my home and your God will be my God. And she follows Naomi as they return to Israel. Ruth and Naomi are poor. They have nothing. And so Naomi sends Ruth to glean in the fields. And there's this practice from the time of the Torah of allowing those who are poor and needy to take from your field, of leaving some of your harvest for them at the corners of your field. And so Ruth has very little status. And Naomi has very few means to make their ends meet, but they do what they can. And yet Boaz, who shows kindness to Ruth, and he instructs his workers to leave behind more than they would otherwise and to protect her. And he knows she's a daughter of a very distant relative. And when Naomi hears, she makes this plan to marry Ruth to Boaz, and Boaz accepts, and they go through all the rituals and to be able to marry Ruth. So I think it's a comforting book because it speaks of the experience of so many. Families are separated, there's displacement, unexpected tragedies, and loss that suddenly strike, moves that do not end up well. And yet all the characters are well-meaning, and they all want to help each other. And there's no court intrigue, there are no wars, just simple people who show kindness. And Naomi, who has positive relationships with her Moabite daughters-in-law, and Ruth, who leaves her home to support her mother-in-law, and Boaz, who helps them and ultimately marries Ruth as they come back without any means to Israel. This is it. Famine and poverty and death and tragedy afflict people, and the world is broken. And yet human kindness restores harmony and brings the love and wholeness and shows the resoluteness and courage of everyday human beings. And Shavuot is a time of that hope, a time of the hope of the book of Ruth, the hope of first fruits, of harvesting something new, the fruits of that journey of the Omer that we were in, to freedom, the hope of growth, being able to learn from the past, of learning to be free, and also the presence of Torah in the world, teaching us how to live and to reflect the divine in the hope of taking an elderly family member across the country to visit their brother whom they haven't seen in years. The hope that we can all change the world through those small acts, not in the grand ways, but in simple acts to make our world beautiful and whole and true. Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom.